It's 4:01 and we got a great agenda this afternoon. Let's have a call to order. And roll call.
Fredson?
Here.
Sterner? Sterner has not joined us yet, but he assured us that he would. Vento? Acknowledging Vento is not present, but will be as well. Wolf?
Here.
Zarin?
Zarin's here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. And Lindstrom?
Hello, hello.
Thank you.
You bet. And I will read the notice that I typically read. Governor Walz has declared a peacetime emergency in response to COVID-19, and the Metropolitan Council Chair has determined it is not practical or prudent to conduct an in-person meetings for reasons stated in the governor's executive order. Accordingly, committee members will participate in this meeting via telephone or other electronic means, and the meeting will be conducted under Minnesota section 13D.021. We encourage you to monitor the meeting remotely. If you have comments, we encourage members of the public to email us at public.info@met.state.mn.us, and we will respond to your comments in a timely manner. So we have some minutes, assuming that the agenda looks good to you all. We have approval of the minutes from April 13th. Is there a motion? Welcome, Councilmember Vento.
Right,
Welcome, Councilmember Sterner. Councilmember Sterner.
I'll approve that minutes there.
Wolf
And-
seconds.
Excellent. Roll call.
Fredson?
Aye.
Sterner?
Aye.
Vento?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Thank you, Committee Member Vento. Zarin?
Aye.
Lindstrom?
Aye.
Thank you.
You bet. No items on our consent agenda, and that means we can just dive right into the non-consent agenda items where we have 3 items. First one, 2021-104, odor control. We have, I saw Mr. Tracy, and then Mr. Schroeder as well.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Bert Tracy. I'm the Interceptor Services Business Unit Manager. And tonight, Wayde Schroeder is going to do the presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Wayde at this time. This will be Wade's first time presenting at the committee.
Welcome, Wayde.
Wayde.
We're glad you could be here.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair and council members. I appreciate it. So tonight we're going to discuss the odor control media procurement contract. You can go to the next slide. So this covers the 30 plus odor control units that we have throughout the Twin Cities region, which is kind of a map that shows where each one of those are. Next slide. Just some background. As I stated before, we own and operate 30 plus odor control units throughout the region. These odor control units help mitigate odors associated with the regional wastewater system that we operate. These units require periodic replacement of various types of media, and that work is performed by MCES staff. Next slide. This right here shows the media types that we requested bids on. It shows who submitted bids, and then the yellow highlights the winning bids. And then just a note on line item 5, the lowest bid we received for that line item was from General Carbon Corporation, but there was some stipulations and it was a conditional bid, which did not meet what we required. So then they were given an official rejection and non-response response letter at the beginning of March. Next slide. So just the details of the bid. The invitation of bids was sent out on January 7th of 2021. There were 16 plan holders, 3 prime bidders, 9 suppliers, 3 plan rooms, 3 plan holders, and then women, minority, veteran, or disadvantaged business enterprises. And then we held a pre-bid meeting on January 19th, I believe it was, and then a public bid opening on February 9th. Next slide. We received 5 bids ranging from $557,730 to $897,700. Purefill Incorporated, working under MS Incorporated, was the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for media types 2 through 5. And then Pure Air Filtration was the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for media type 1. The Office of Equal Opportunity did not set a Metropolitan Council underutilized business or MCUB goal for this. Next slide. And then the proposed action we have is that the Metropolitan Council authorizes the regional administrator to award and execute contract 20P306 with Purefill Incorporated and Pure Air Filtration for the purpose of odor control media items in the amount not to exceed $3 million. And next slide. That was quick, but that's what I got.
Thank
So
you.
if anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them the best I can.
Any questions for Mr. Schroeder? And I can't see you all. There you all are. Seeing none, is there a motion?
Move
So moved.
approval.
I'll second.
All right, roll call, please.
So just to clarify, did we have Bento motion?
Wolf motion, Vento second.
Okay, thank you. Fredson,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye. Zarin's
acknowledging Zarin said aye, and Lindstrom.
Aye,
Thank you.
thank you. That takes us to our second item, which is Met Council HVAC, piping, mechanical, and sheet metal services, a rejection of the bids. And we have Mr. Tierney and Mr. White.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is John Tierney. I'm the mechanical maintenance manager for MCES, so responsible for all the mechanical maintenance at our 9 wastewater treatment plants, as well as our RMF facility, our regional maintenance facility. Background today, this contract provides heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, the piping, mechanical, and sheet metal services for all the MCS locations. The council wastewater treatment plants and the regional maintenance facility have numerous HVAC systems that must be maintained for proper operation, for creature comfort, process efficiencies, and avoidance of permit violations. The anticipated contract value was $3 million for a term of 5 years. The bid process was included labor and material for a 1-year average. 8 bids were received on December 22nd, 2020. Bids ranged from $328,927.50 to $407,539.37. The Metropolitan Council underutilized business MCUB goal for this contract was 8%. 7 of the 8 lowest bids were determined to be non-responsive, and the sole responsible bidder was 24% higher than the lowest bid. I have a couple other bullet points I'd like to touch on as a little bit of background. One is our desire is to meet the goal of both the ES business units and the council goals for equity inclusion. We don't feel that this round of bids met that goal or objective. We've been having several meetings with procurement and OEO and still have a few more already on the calendar to discuss how we can go about this process and be successful. In our non-construction contracts, we have never had an MCUB goal. So this was kind of new for us, as well as our contractors that typically bid on this type of work. We deal with a lot of these folks on several occasions bidding for different work, and none of them were really familiar with our process. So the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to reject all bids for our HVAC, piping, mechanical, and sheet metal services for all MCS locations and resolicit bids for this contract.
Thank you. Questions? Is it assumed, or I would assume, that we would be in communication with those 8 bidders and do a little bit more education around what our hopes are here with the MCUB?
Absolutely, that's our goal. Like I say, we've been working with OEO. We have a few ideas that we'd like to propose, and maybe some alternatives to our current MCUB process. I could go into that a little deeper if you'd like to hear. But primarily, we'd like to give ideas about procuring from MCUB parts houses, part suppliers, and some other initiatives that are already set. But an idea that we had is a lot of our current vendors, there's no MCUBs out there really available to do this type of work. So we would like to look at who they employ. I can go into a little more detail on the next business item as I have some examples, or I can bring those up in this with this business item if you'd like.
Either way.
So the next topic is business item 2021106, and we have mechanical pipe fitting contracts. And with that contract, some of the folks I have a female lead. The foreman's a female. I have African American. I have American Indian. So we would like to kind of look at that type of system or ideas, I guess, or ways to meet our MCUB objectives. So that's some of the discussions that we're going to have with OEO coming up in our next scheduled meetings. Just trying to help our vendors, meet our goals, and we can meet our MCES goals as well.
Chair Lindstrom?
Yeah, please.
Committee member Zarin posted a question in the chat if there was a pre-bid meeting and did everyone show up for it?
Mr. Chair, yes, there was a pre-bid meeting, and there again, this whole process was very new for us at MCES because the MCS non-construction contracts never had an MCUB goal before. And it was very new for our OEO folks to put a goal on this contract or on these contracts. But everybody was there. There were questions raised about MCUB and the fact that we would need to work on our scope of work in order to give those guys ideas, those vendors, those contractors ideas on how to meet our OEO objectives, our MCUB goals and objectives. So we did not do that at the pre-bid meeting.
Councilmember Stern, and then Wolf.
Great, thank you very much. I just was maybe get my hands around a little bit more, but I was using like maybe an analogy, like if I was looking for a certified midwife and I had a goal of 8% men in that group, is that possible to obtain? And so I'm kind of wondering, can they obtain this, or is there like training in the pipeline that to get that goal, they need to still go through some certifications and training so we have enough people to do this work? Like, are we ready for prime time now, or is this something down the year or two to be able to get the people to qualify for MCUB?
Yeah, good question. I think I would like to, if possible. Granted, time is of the essence here because I'm getting very near the end of my contract and the funding I have for my current contracts. We would like to do our best to work within, the MCUB process and meet those OEO goals if we can. I would like to come to a mutual agreement with procurement and OEO. If we get too close to that deadline, that maybe we do work on this and solicit the next time and have that MCUB goal and be able to meet it, educate our contractors on how to meet it, what processes they could do or how they could go about that. Because, I received some questions like, well, I work on HVAC equipment. Are you expecting me to go out and have another company come in and do our work to meet those goals, which just increases the money, it just increases the what we'd have to pay out. So we're there's a lot of questions to be answered, and I think we were just a little premature when we went out. I started this process last July, and then like I say, we had the bid opening on December 22nd, but there were several questions to be answered. I expected us to educate the folks a little more at the pre-bid meeting, and that really didn't happen.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate your efforts and your information here.
You bet.
Chair Lindstrom, before we move on to Councilmember Wolf, Dan White had his hand raised. Did you have any clarification to Mr. Tierney's statement?
Well, maybe I can add just a little. When John says so these are non-construction, basically a time and material contract. So we're asking in the HVAC case, we literally have about just under 2 people that services that contract on any given, so we have 1.7 or 1.8 FTEs that might be doing that work throughout all of our sites. And so they could sub out the parts, and that's the part that I think they would be a potential. But to say that they would sub out a percentage of that work when we're only talking about 2 people would be very difficult. I mean, I'm not sure how they would do that. So it is a difference. We need to work out what the total job description is and what the work is, and then work with OEO to see how we can meet those goals and understand what the expectation is. And the pipe fitters, we have a few more than that, but it's the same thing. Basically, they're providing labor on site to do whatever task we need to do on a certain job, and sometimes it might be 10 people, in a site for a week or 2, and then other times it might be 3 people for the next month. So, to say that we're going to sub out a certain percentage of that, unless we're talking about just the materials that they're buying, that's a little bit difficult. So we need to understand exactly what the expectation are, and then we have to figure out on our bid sheet, if we do want them to do that, then we have to provide a line item on the bid sheet that they can actually bid that. So it's not like a big capital project where they're bidding out, a portion of the work where they can literally sub out some of the work. This is basically time and materials for, pipe fitters that would come in and do work, and then we're trying to figure out how to get them to sub part of that work. So that's all I really wanted to add. Thank you.
Excellent. Other questions? Oh, Councilmember Wolf, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So typically I thought when they set these goals, they know kind of what's the availability of people to do the work or provide the supplies to figure out the goal. Was there some miscommunication in this one that it wasn't, that there weren't people available or suppliers available to meet the goal?
So basically, I think what happened was the person that handled the OEO goal process, I was basically basing my information on the parts to use an MCUB supply house to supply parts. As far as any of the other objectives, it wasn't discussed. It wasn't clear. Like I say, this was a, I kind of feel that my two contracts here were kind of the guinea pig process for our relationship with OEO and trying to meet those objectives. So yes, we should have, and we need more work on that. And I think we're getting better. The more that we communicate, I think we're getting there and coming to an understanding, and we really like to meet our objectives. Whether that's adjust that percentage or educate and find other creative ways for our contractors to meet those goals.
Good questions. Is there a motion? You are looking for a motion, correct? To reject the bids officially?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to that end?
Wolf moves the staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Zarin,
Zarin, Councilmember Zarin gets in the second. A roll call, please.
Fredson,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin, Councilmember Zarin, we do not hear you. Can you turn your video on and give us a thumbs up? Or post in the chat? We'll give him a moment. Acknowledging Councilmember Zarin said yes in the chat. And Lindstrom,
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you. Back to Mr. Tierney. Pipe fitters, rejection of bid.
Okay, thank you, sir. So same here. This contract provides mechanical pipe fitting services for all MCS locations. The council wastewater treatment plants or regional maintenance facility have many long lengths of piping that convey many types of liquids. We have steam and pressure vessels and other equipment that require special licensure for repairs. These systems and equipment must be maintained, repaired, and replaced as needed for proper operation, safety, and environmental protection. The anticipated contract value for this was $8 million for a term of 5 years, and same bid process. We took labor and material on an average 1 year average to determine the bids. 4 bids were received on December 22nd, 2020. Bids ranged from $2,126,253 to $2,521,401. The Metropolitan Council underutilized business. The MCUB goal for this contract was 3%. There, 3 of the 4 bids were determined to be non-responsive, and the sole responsible bidder was 14% higher than the lowest bid. And again, we just don't feel like this met the goals and a good use of our council funds. So we would the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council council authorized its regional administrator to reject all bids for the mechanical pipe fitting services for all MCS locations and resolicit bids for this contract. And a lot of the background and the same points from the last item applies to this item as well. We don't feel that we have more work to do on this in our partnership with OEO and procurement.
Thank you. I see Councilmember Zarin has a question. Susan, can you read that one out?
Sure, absolutely. Councilmember Zarin asked if there is a pipe welding in the scope of work, and could that task be bid to a small MCUB?
Mr. Chair, yes, very possible. Those are things that we can look at. So yes, that is possible. We've discussed that maybe plumbing. So we have you need licensed plumbers to work on sanitary type sewer piping, toilets and sinks and things of that nature. We could possibly sub out to an M-Cub for that type of work as well. So I think that's part of that, just trying to be creative and educate our contractors on how to properly bid to meet those goals and objectives.
Councilmember Sterner.
Thank you, Chair. I just was wondering who was the lowest responsible bidder, and did they have any kind of uncub in there, like 1% or anything, or they even address that issue?
No. Let's see. So no, there was a zero self-performed statement with the low bidder. So they didn't submit any good faith effort on meeting those goals and objective, as several of them the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is where I think there's an issue. Like one of my backgrounds, I'm definitely not a plumber, but I was on the plumbing board for about 9 years. And I would say in that whole time of either being on the board or attending meetings or be in the area, we might have had 3 people that would have fit this, one, and they wouldn't necessarily would have been, they were working for cities or, inspectors or that kind of thing. And I'm just not wondering if there's even the people there in the pipeline. I know there's been generating of more people to fit, but it just seems like real difficult, and we have work that needs to be done, and it's goals in the future, but there's also vision. Like I think it's screwy that we just bought a bunch of diesel buses on that. It's ridiculous when we're going to sunset those out a little bit going, but we're still buying diesel buses. And I'm just wondering if this is one of those where you set the vision, but sometimes we got to get the work done so we don't, pay quite a bit more and have it go in disrepair too.
Yeah. Yeah. There again, I don't know of any pipe fitters that are M-Cubs or be able to provide the M-Cub process. I mean, we've been looking at that now for the past, say, like 3 years, looking for M-Cubs. A lot of our planners and schedulers were always looking for ways that we can meet some goals, the OEO goals. But yes, it is very difficult to find anybody. So that's, I think, part of that where we need to get creative and see how we can work with procurement and OEO and meet those goals, educate our contractors, that type of thing, which I think we can do. I think we can manage that and meet those goals.
Right. Yeah. Just to follow up, because I think you like to have the plumbing trades and be in there, even whether you go to Dunwoody or with the union trades there, if that's going to take some time to get people in the pipeline, that will make that happen, 1 or 2 years at that, So I'm just thinking that might be something to consider too,
Sure. I know something that we haven't done with the pipe fitter contract in the past is we didn't allow for apprentices because it was one flat hourly rate. Well, this time around, we're looking at having apprentices on staff. So that's one of the conversations that MBU or the maintenance business unit wants to have with OEO and procurement is maybe we can look at somehow developing our program for the apprenticeship and have BIPOC people or something on that order to help meet those goals and objectives. Black, Indigenous, people of color, women. We just reached out to Dunwoody. There's a construction class, or it's a program at Dunwoody where it's primarily all women. I reached out to them for solicitation for some jobs that we have opening, some apprenticeship jobs. So trying to make partnerships where we can to help us meet those goals. So maybe looking at that as well, or something to that effect as well.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, John. Great work.
Thank you.
I believe Councilmember Zieren has a few comments
Yes,
he'd like
he
to
does. And
shuttle
I
through
also
Susan.
Yes, I also received a message from Laura Vetter from Procurement, who is on the line with us. She has a clarification, if she could provide that before we move on.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello, Laura.
Mr. Chair and committee members, just one clarification I wanted to make sure was on the record from procurement is that the only responsive and responsible bidder did meet the goal of the 8% on this project. So I just wanted to ensure that was accurately reflected on the record. And that is all I had. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councilmember Zarin has a couple of questions. Let me scroll back, make sure I get to the right one. Is wondering, asking for minorities to do the work is the point. He was acknowledging that. Has the Mechanical Contractors Association been contacted?
We've been in contact with the local pipe fitter union off and on. They're part of our joint labor management committee. But no, the Contractors Association, I'm not familiar with that. The union, the local 455, we've been in contact with.
Okay, and lastly, he posted a statement, workforce development is not the same as MCUB. Just to acknowledge those postings in the chat.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and council members, I think that's kind of one of the discussions we would like to have with OEO, and we did preliminary discuss a little bit of that with Ashante Payne about, you know, how would that look, because there are some things happening with encouraging of hiring and apprenticeship programs and hiring diversity, and we think this may fit naturally with that, because that's something we could engage in and the contractors are fully ready to engage in. So that's one of the discussions we'll be having with them as potentially an option. Don't know whether that'll be successful or not, but it is something that we would like to consider and have that discussion with them, is could we be successful in providing good living wage jobs for people in the community versus being an official, you know, MCUB where it's owned by a person of minority. So that's one of the things we'd like to discuss with them, and we'll see. Obviously, when we come back, you'll see whether we're successful or not, but that's our goal, or one of our goals. I'm out.
Great questions, everybody. Anything else?
No, I'm complete.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Zirin. Susan, could you read what he has to say?
Sure. Councilmember Zarin stated in the chat, to me, you talked to the union about workforce development and MCUB talked to the Contractors Association.
And if I'm sure Councilmember Zirin could provide some contact information if after this you find that would be helpful. He says I can, yes.
He says I can. So Councilmember Zarin, if you would like to provide that to me, I can have an addendum in the committee report once it goes forward to the council.
Great. Is there a motion to approve the staff recommendation? Don't all speak at once. Councilmember Fredson.
Fredson here. Move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. A second?
Wolf seconds.
Thank you. Roll call.
Fredson,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Bento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin. Zarin is yes in the chat. And Lindstrom.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good information to everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all for your time.
You bet. Thank you. And that takes us to our information item this afternoon, which is an interagency cooperative agreement for surface water quality monitoring.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and community members. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm here for an information item. There's no funding related to this agreement, but it's a good opportunity to share some of the work that we're doing with state agencies and where some of our council monitoring fits into that. And this is a document put together with representatives from the various water organizations in the state. And it's part of the interagency coordinating team, the ICT as it's often known. And there's a sub-team that I'm part of called the Monitoring and Assessment Sub-Team. And so that's where this document was drafted, and we have not signed it yet, but I wanted to share some of the information about it. If there's any questions or feedback, that would be great. Otherwise, next slide, please. By the way, I'm Dan Hennelly, Assistant Manager of the Water Resources section.
Welcome, Dan.
Thanks. Some background real quick is, this isn't anything really new. This is just kind of the first formalization with an agreement, an interagency agreement, where we've been coordinating monitoring activities across the state for many years. That sub-team I mentioned has been going on as well. And so this work has been happening. It's just hasn't been kind of written down and signed off. So that's part of the reason for this effort. What's contained in the agreement is goals and kind of just the programs that are within each agency and what their different goals are. And I'll be going a little bit more into kind of the uniqueness of different roles and goals. And then towards the end of the agreement, there's some highlights of opportunities for collaborations. And so that's what that sub-team and what we want to focus on going forward is how can we collaborate and help improve each other's work. Met Council's in an interesting role in that conversation, being in the metro area, whereas a lot of the other, if not every other program that's part of this agreement is a statewide. And as I mentioned, there's no funding, but it does, so there's no contracts or vendors, nothing with MCUB. But in that collaboration section, it does call out some existing agreements I've presented to the committee in the past on our WOMP 2 joint powers agreement with PCA within the council for our stream monitoring work. And this would be an example of a collaboration that's highlighted and just referenced in this agreement. Next slide, please. So this is a pretty high level overview. I'm sure some professor could probably give a 10-hour presentation on what each state agency does and does not do. But in the agreement, we do have a kind of high level description of kind of the focus of each organization. And I think this is maybe the main takeaway of my presentation today, I think, is to kind of inform where we fit into the statewide system. The Department of Agriculture is focused on collecting chemistry data, focusing on agricultural chemicals like pesticides and fertilizer. Department of Health is focused on those drinking water sources, and they do have some things on Lake Superior for public health and beaches. Department of Natural Resources, water quantity and sustainable use and appropriation of water resources. The Pollutant Control Agency does a broad variety of things here: chemistry, biology, physical data, lakes, wetlands, streams, and rivers, and they're focusing on aquatic life and recreational uses. And then there's Met Council, so we're doing similar work on the lakes, rivers, and streams as far as the breadth that we do. We do chemistry, we do physical, we do biology, and obviously this is focused on the metropolitan area. And we work very closely with the Pollution Control Agency. I alluded to our joint powers agreement that we have with them, and we have regular meetings with the Pollution Control Agency on a variety of topics from a staff level and daily coordination to leadership discussions on programs like this example. So there's various things that they rely on us to do in the metropolitan area because of the high density population and recreation. And so that's the big picture of the different agencies. So next slide, please. So this is just high level again. I'm not going to read the entire statute, but this is where each agency has their statutory authorities, and so the agreement highlights our own and as pertaining to our monitoring work, surface water monitoring work. And so I've bolded a couple highlights there, and that our monitoring project programs and our partnerships are all part of our water resource policy plan and helping to implement those strategies. And then in the bottom statute there, just that this is an example of one of those types of agreements, as well as a more focused one like the joint powers agreement that we have for our tributary stream monitoring program. But benefits of these partnerships and statewide coordination is to reduce the costs of advanced wastewater treatment and improve those water bodies. And so that's what we're doing. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I see benefiting the council with this agreement is just that it does highlight our role and kind of puts it on paper. And you know, this document will be signed by commissioners and Lisa Thompson, general manager. And so it's really just highlighting how we fit into the statewide system. And you know, we do get some perception of duplication of efforts, or you know, you're doing the same work, but this really calls out the unique focuses and focus areas, and really put some support behind the collaboration opportunities going forward between the various water organizations and agencies. So that's my next slide, please. And that's all I had for you guys for the information item. So I'd be happy to answer questions. I might not be able to answer all of them, and certainly we can follow up outside as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Where do you think we can do more collaboration with the state agencies? Anything really jump out?
Well, I think the Pollution Control Agency is where we've had the most in the past, where we've been trying to integrate the work. You know, I say there's a perception of duplication of efforts, and you know, that's where a lot of our attention has been. So we're making a lot of improvements there of, you know, work that we're doing to the point where if we're doing it or they're doing it, we're not both even at the same location. Can we coordinate that a little bit more? So we're making some strides on getting data that's collected by us and some of our partners to integrate with the Pollution Control Agency's data. And a lot of it has to do with just highlighting existing collaborations that were maybe just kind of under the radar. And you know, we're helping the Department of Ag with pesticide monitoring in the metro area. And I think there's maybe more we could take that relationship, but wanting to put it on paper and highlight those and give them credit where it's due. But I think the state is becoming more aware of how valuable our Met Council data is for the state. We were just on a call with the PCA today, and you know, our stations, our river stations in this example, are actually being brought up in the Gulf of Mexico Hypoxia Task Force discussions, just because we are such a vital piece to the state's data set. So I think those are the things, are just kind of getting our data and the importance of it out there.
Right. Does Bowser need to be a part of this, or they don't really fit into this monitoring?
Yeah, they have a representative on that sub team I alluded to for the ICT, the monitoring and assessment sub team. So they have a representative, and they elected to not be part of this. You know, they don't have monitoring programs. You know, they do support them with and planning with funding and some you know, implementation pieces. So they were part of the drafting of this and kind of input on that sub team, and they will continue to be on that team, I believe, for, you know, coordination, but not part of this kind of system-wide cooperative agreement.
And EQB, same thing. They're just a little. They're not a perfect fit.
Yeah, you know, the PCA was kind of the Pollution Control Agency was kind of the lead on this, and so the scope was really, you know, state agencies that have these monitoring programs that are part of the coordinating of the stations and the programs, so that we're not overlapping. And I mean, it's a good point. I could maybe investigate that with the team a little bit more, but they have not been at this point.
Councilmember Sterner.
Well, Peter, you're on a roll there, so I just had a couple more. I was thinking about like either soil and water or some of the county governments. Do they work with you at all, like especially some of the larger counties?
Yeah, certainly, and I think Mr. Chair and committee members, the statewide programs are outstate, outside of the metro area, are working with them locally, and that's kind of up to each agency. This document doesn't call that out. It doesn't talk about how they maybe will or should and be engaging with local partners. And it's very similar to the council monitoring programs. We are very engaged with our metro area watersheds, SWCDs. And some of that is part of this. I keep mentioning the Joint Powers Agreement with the Pollution Control Agency, because that is money that we're coordinating with those statewide programs. And some of that is passed down as kind of an agreement that we then have with our cooperating partners locally. And there's some money that's passed down from the PCA through us to the people in the field. And some of them are, SWCDs or watershed districts or counties. So that is an example of how they're integrated with this, but this agreement doesn't really highlight those.
Well, if I recall, we're monitoring something like 150 lakes and, I don't know, 20 streams and rivers. And so it's good that we have a presence at this as a part of this cooperative agreement, because we have a lot to say about it. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, this is great. Keep us posted.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll be back. This was, we've given some previous overview presentations of our programs with our manager Judy Sventek and I in the past, and we'll be back soon. Thank you.
And council members, if you ever, when the time allows and it's a nice sunny day, get out there on the river as part of the water, surface water monitoring. It's a great afternoon.
We are resuming our boat monitoring activities this year. Last year they were on hold, so you snuck in at the end there, Mr. Chair.
I did. I got lucky, and it was like a beautiful day.
Yeah. So
you planned it so well.
Yeah.
Peter, I've been on the waiting list for over a year now, so just so you know, you keep rubbing.
Have you really?
Yes, absolutely. So, okay.
Excellent.
We still have the list, Mr. Chair, committee members. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan. All right. I believe that takes us to the general manager's report.
I do think that day is going to come when we can get back out and get you on the river and get you those experiences that you've been asking for and we had to put on hold. I did have a couple comments about our topics tonight. One is the one we just got done with. I can't miss the opportunity to kind of toot the horn for ES. The fact it's a little unusual for us to be seen amongst these other state agencies as a partner that they can trust and have confidence in our testing capabilities and monitoring. If you'd go look in other states, I don't think an organization that was doing the kind of work that we're doing would typically be seen in that same level of collaboration with these folks. So it's a big testimony, I think, for our long-standing reputation, but also our capabilities. We started out, really focused on testing, so we understood the wastewater side. And as we grew and became a part of the Met Council, of course, we started to do additional monitoring. So the fact that there isn't duplication is because they don't have to do it themselves, because they trust that what we're producing and the data we're sharing is credible. So I do think it's good to think about the fact that it's unusual. We start to think these things are typical, and they're really not. And why not? Because a lot of other places wouldn't have the trust in an organization like ours that they do with us. So that's really important, because we know that some of these big problems and challenges we have is going to take us all working together and collaborating. So it's a good thing to build from. And I think the earlier comments or conversations that we had around how can we advance equity in our business,
I hope that you got the perspective that we're really serious about figuring out how to help advance that goal. And what we learned with this process is that we had apples and bananas relative to what our experiences had been apples, and we realized, whoa, this is a little different than those other situations, and we need to rethink how we go about achieving those goals with this type of work or contracting. And we've got willing partners with Office of Equal Opportunity and Procurement, and our staff, as you can see, have already started to think about ways in which we could help raise that, advance equity and address those disparities. So I hope that you feel confident that we're going to figure out some ways of doing this, and can sense that we really care about these goals. That's all I had. I wish I could dismiss this early for a little sunshine, but it's actually raining at my house right now.
That's all right. Anything else from the rest of the council?
I just was going to make a comment. I really, like that we're on that path, because I think it's something, just doing the right thing is great, but it doesn't need to cost you 40% more, 20% more to do the right thing, and we can get it right and do well. And I think the environment division of the Metropolitan Council really demonstrates that you can do it the right way and be very successful with it. So hats off to you, Manager Lisa Thompson.
And I think this committee will support anytime we feel like we need to go back to the drawing board and resubmit the bids and get some better education out there. That's a good thing.
Thank you.
And with that, we are